All right. Welcome back, Prospect Live viewers and listeners. This is the 2021 MLB Draft podcast / video show. I'm your host, Ralph Lifshitz. Of course, I have Joe Doyle joining me. Joe, how's your week been, man?
Good, man. How's yours going?
Not too bad. I heard that we worked on something big over at the site. Perhaps we expanded our list out to a top 100 for the 2021 MLB Draft. Of course, that's what we did.
Rumors have it we've actually expanded it to 200, but we're only going to give these guys a taste.
Oh, that's actually true. But we are only releasing the actual public list up to 100. There's still a whole lot that's going to change within that list. Certainly within the 200, we hope to expand out, 400, 1,000. We're gonna have every amateur player in the world that's eligible for the draft ranked and written up at some point.
There you go.
Probably. That's a lot of people.
We should cap it at the amount of picks, but we'll figure that out later.
Who knows how many picks next year? They could flip that in a dime any second. But let's jump in here. Once again, I think we should probably check in with this question probably every few weeks, maybe once a month. Having dug in a little bit more, there's been a few more events. We've gotten a little bit more data on players that were at PG National, guys that were in a PG National, that were at other events, PBR stuff, etc. But sort of far-reaching thoughts on the draft, or in particular, what groups, meaning college and prep, what talent pools, and then positional groups within those talent pools are sort of the strengths of this draft at this point. I know we talked about the high school shortstops a lot. Is it still a high school shortstops? Is there any other position groups that have sort of started to establish themselves as a standout group to you?
Yeah, I think on the prep side, I think it's still the prep shortstops. There's still 4 or 5 guys I could reasonably see going in the first round. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. I think that's going to probably whittle itself down to maybe 2 prep shortstops, maybe 3 that actually go in the first round. On the prep side, I think we're starting to see a little bit of life from the starting pitcher or just pitching side of things. It's exciting to see some guys pop prior to PG National and some of these other smaller events that have taken place over the last couple of weeks. It was mostly Andrew Painter, and then behind that, there was Christian Little and there was question marks, but seeing guys like Chase Burns pop and Maddox Bruns pop and Jackson Jobe pop, these are guys that have shown that they may have the talent and the upside to push their way into the first round, or at least into that conversation. So I still do think, it's largely the top end of the prep pitching class still pales in comparison to 2020. There's not a Nick Bitsko, there's not a Mick Abel. And with the exception for me of Painter, I still don't think there's a Jared Kelly. So that's where I'm at on the prep ranks. On the college side of things, nothing's really happened. I don't think anything's really changed. I think college outfield is still a really strong, probably one of the stronger parts of the 2021 class. And then as we continue to dive in, college pitching, I think especially with the slowdown, is going to be the focal point of the 2021 draft. And I can say that fairly confidently 11 months prior.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. But, one of the things I think I wanted to hammer on was there were a lot of prep arms that sort of popped for us at PG National. And we've seen a lot of those guys that send up lists. There's been a wide variety of opinions, depending upon whether you read us. Certainly, Baseball America's draft ranking started to matriculate this week. They had Maddox Bruns all the way up at 2 on their prep ranks, which is a bit higher than we have them, but certainly reasonable. And I think it sort of speaks to, how great of a showing Bruns had at PG National, and sort of he was a guy that was really off the radar, I think, for most folks in terms of top 100 lists, or even follow 100 lists. And then all of a sudden he popped. He's pretty high in PG's rankings as well. They obviously do great work over there and have a lot of, firsthand information and accounts on these players. They had him a little bit lower, but I think you see some variation there. Jackson Jobe is a guy that's very high in all these different rankings because of, I think the data that we're getting on, his different pitches, whether it's the plus 3,000 spin RPM spin rates on the breaking ball, or even the fastball metric. Gauge jump is a guy that, we've seen some of the Rapsodo data on, and I know we've talked about that a little bit, especially his fastball, 100% spin efficiency on that pitch. We know about that flat angle and that really low release point. And the way he
basically traveling straight up.
Yeah, and he uses his height to, his lack of height to his advantage, So score one for more 6 feet or under starting pitchers. I'm all for it. But there's a lot of talent within these. Even someone like Cale Lansfield, who I know didn't make Baseball America's ranks, but was relatively high on Perfect Games ranks, and he's on our top 100 as well. There's a ton of these prep arms that I feel maybe the high end isn't as good as it was in 2020, but you might be able to make an argument for sort of that middle tier is a lot deeper.
I think you're right.
A lot more guys that might sign that have a lot more upside, but there's no superstars necessarily at this point outside of Painter. But there's some questions on him even, right? We don't love the extension, especially with the front leg. It's very flat. He's very sort of tall and fall. But on this, conversely, he's incredibly coordinated for a 6'7" guy. I know we talked about that in some of our chats yesterday. I don't know if that was in our baseball chat with Mason McRae and all those different guys and Diego, et cetera, or if that was on the Prospect Lives one. But I know that we did have one of those conversations. Agreed on the college outfielders as well. It's a really deep class. There's a ton of outfielders, even guys that I think didn't make the top 100. That probably get top 5 round, consideration pretty easily. Sure. In college pitching, it's top heavy. I'm not as crazy about the depth in this draft, obviously, as we were last year in particular. But even with a lot of guys that were interesting arms, whether it's a Tommy Mace or a Seth Lonsway getting pushed down, I don't know. I still don't feel like that depth tier, so to speak, like the guys that go rounds 2 to 4, is great. Maybe that's just me.
No.
And we haven't seen enough of it. I think that's another big part of it. Is this is a year where it's incredibly tough to evaluate because we don't have a lot of these institutions that we've sort of come used to, whether it was Cape Cod or the U.S. men's national team, or I just made that into a soccer thing with the men's national team, the U.S. collegiate national team. I caught myself there. And even to a lesser extent, or maybe a bigger extent, the College World Series and regionals and all that stuff, and seeing these guys,
it all matters
on the big stage. On good video, some of these teams that are mid majors that maybe we don't see a lot of good streams from their schools or with the right camera angles. I think that boosts guys a little bit too, especially as they're going into that summer where they might be in the national team, or they might be in Northwoods, or they might be in the Cape or Futures League or any CBL or Cal Ripken or Coastal or a million of these other wooden bat leagues,
Yeah.
We don't really have that. And now there's a league in Indy and we're trying to grab information where we can, but people aren't going to as many games.
People aren't allowed to go to as many games.
That's it too. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, and resources are scarce. So it's a different, it's a different animal entirely, especially with the college guys. Because I feel like with the prep kids, we're going to see the showcases, and they were all going to mash against their high school teams, man. It's just a matter of whether these hitters had their best timing or not. I think a lot of these pitchers all did. And so maybe that's why they separate themselves. But it's a pretty good prep class kind of.
I think my point more so on the college arms. I think I wouldn't say it's as talented as last year, at least not at this point.
Sure.
But I still think the dearth of the first round next year is going to be college arms, just because so long as there is a D1 baseball season next year, there's safety in maturity and track record, innings. So I don't think, you and I have talked a lot about guys like Doug Nikhazy, for example, from Ole Miss, Ty Madden from Texas. These aren't guys that are necessarily Eric Serentola, another one. They're not guys that are necessarily like first round talents. They don't jump right off the page, but when there is so much misinformation or lack of information being spread or not being spread, you kind of just go with what you can see and what you have data on, and
Sure.
Against advanced competition. So I just think the first round is going to be full of college pitching. But a point that you made, I think, really sticks with me, and that is, I think you hit the nail on the head. Rounds 2, 3, 4. There's going to be some prep arms that come off the board in those rounds that I really, really like. They're going to be really fun projects. Gage Jump is one that, if he goes in, the end of the second round or the early third round, at 5'10", he could move fast because, there's not a whole lot of, I don't want to put this the wrong way, but he's pretty polished for a guy that's his size, and you kind of get what you get with Gage Jump. But other ones like Pierce Coppola, I think he's a really fun project. Max DeBeck, I think he's another one. The 6'7" guys, man, that's where I'm at. Max DeBeck, Pierce Coppola. Who else? Who am I missing? Luke Hayden. There's quite a few guys out there that are going to be in that second, third, and fourth round discussion that I think are going to be really nice pieces as early draftees.
Yeah, even a guy like, I guess he's a little bit more polished, but even a guy like Anthony Susak, could end up in that.
Love that slider.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Luke Hayden. I'm just sort of looking down the list here. Brandon Neely was another one that immediately popped into my head.
Jay Woolfolk.
Yeah. I mean, and some of these guys may end up, they might even be pushed into the draft simply because there's not going to be that many opportunities and rotations at colleges the next year,
Yeah. I mean, look at how many guys popped into the first 5. A lot of guys went to
school this year, man.
Look at how many guys popped into the first 5 rounds this year that, we didn't necessarily expect. Like Tink Hens. Wasn't a guy that necessarily was on many guys' radars, but live arm, a lot of upside, very downhill and fluid. He got picked early. Victor Medeiros ended up going because of what he can provide down the road. These guys always end up popping. And a lot of times it's the guys that we expect to go early that don't end up going to school, like Montgomery, for example. He's going to end up at Florida State. So, these guys like Jackson Jobe and Gage Jump and Maddox Bruns, they're the fun ones to track because they're the ones you don't know about until you see their stuff.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And there'll be some guys that certainly pop next season if we do have the college baseball season, as you mentioned. But what do you say? Do you want to jump sort of into the top tier of the rankings, some of the guys that sort of moved, and then maybe wrap it up with some of the players that we're highest on?
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So do you want to just roll right through the top 10? I think it's pretty obvious. We're keeping Kumara Rocker number 1. Everyone can argue until he is dethroned. He's probably going to be our number 1.
And just for what it's, I think it's worth mentioning. There's a lot of things about Rocker, and I don't want to go too deep into the top 10, even top 20, because we've done this. But we got some good information as of late on some of the TrackMan data on some of the top guys in college baseball, and everything checks out. Rocker has extreme vertical and horizontal tilt on his fastball, which really correlates with him not having any idea where it's going. The slider is super impressive. Everyone knows about the frame and the physicality. So still no reason to doubt him. Not yet.
Yeah. And I'll say, in unison with that, Jack Leiter has a lot more vertical movement on his fastball than I think I had initially expected, just based on some of his raw spin data. I think our stance on Jack Leiter for now is the pitchability is nice. There's projectability there. But we just need to see a few more ticks on that fastball to really be all in. He is still number 3 on our list. So, and he's number 2 on yours. I think he's 5 on mine. Mason, you can send me nasty notes in my inbox. It's all right, buddy. It's cool. Judd Fabian is our number 2. I have a number 2 on mine. He's 4 on yours. Jaden Hill stays put at 4. Brady House stays put at 5. And I believe we had our first mover with Ian Moeller, right? That moved up 1 spot in these ranks.
So Marcelo, I don't know if you hit Mayer. Marcelo Mayer is 6.
Oh
And
yeah, I was
then
going to say Mayer. I was going to say
and then
Mayer.
7 is Ian Moeller.
Yes.
Yeah, Ian Moeller passed Adrian Del Castillo. I think simply because his PG National showcase was so exceptional that he might have the hit tool that Del Castillo has. We'll see.
He might. Yeah, we're certainly Ian Moeller fans here, so that's a rank that we're going to stick behind. We got plenty of information on him. But you heard it there. The top 6 stays the same. It's still Rocker, Fabian, Leiter, Hill, House, Mayer. Moeller moves up 1 spot into 7. At 8, we have Adrian Del Castillo, as Joe had mentioned. Matt McLean at number 9. And rounding up the top 10 is Jordan Lawler. Del Castillo dropped 1. Matt McLean moved up 1 spot. Somehow I now have Matt McLean ranked higher than you.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I started to dig in a little bit more, and I don't know. I'm starting to feel this thing.
Either way, top 10 love for the guy.
A little bit better. It was only a couple of spots, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
So, top 10 guy right now. Maybe he's Alex Bregman light. I think that's what we're kind of hoping for. And then Jordan Lawler moved up 1 spot.
Mm-hmm. And it's not really these guys moving up as much as it is a couple of guys just kind of trickling out of the top 10.
Moving down. Exactly. Yeah. So let's go for some of the big movers, whether up or down. Colton Hauser actually moved up 4 spots. Alex Benellis started digging a little bit more on some of the batted ball data and watched a few more games. And obviously didn't have anything from this season. But, yeah, I don't know. I moved Benellis up a few spots. I know you still have him, I think, a couple spots higher than me. But he did move up 7 spots in our rankings. Our boy, Alex Mooney, only moved up 1 spot. He's now at 13. Big mover was Andrew Painter, moved up 10 spots. I think that was partially my rankings moving him up that high. Dude, Benny Montgomery.
That's on me.
He dropped 9 spots for your man, Joe.
Yeah, so let me explain.
Yeah,
last week I had Benny as my 10th prospect on the list, and I moved him down to 23. And it's not so much anything that Benny did as much as it is a philosophical change on my end. I think the college guys are going to be really favored, and I think the polish is going to be really favored. I love everything that Benny does on the field. He's maybe the most electric athlete we have on the prep end this year. But I do have questions about the swing. And truth be told, if he were to come out at area code games or any of these other showcases and, stay back on the ball a little bit and drive it in game, he's going to shoot back up into my top 12 pretty quickly. But I do want to see some more hitability.
Makes sense. But I don't know, man. He's a great interview too. Do you like him off the field? You said only on the field. I think you're alluding to, we do an interview with a kid and all of a sudden you drop him 9 spots in your rank.
I feel bad. I dropped him.
We're not going to get people back in the show, Joe.
No, I know. No, Benny, he's mature.
Benny, man, you're still 12. I didn't even move you.
He's more mature, dude. Benny's the real deal. I do like Benny, and hopefully he ends up with the Dodgers because they turn everything into gold.
That's the one we keep hearing. Anybody that has anything that needs to be fixed, we're like, the Dodgers will draft him and then they'll be an all-star.
Yeah, pretty much.
It doesn't work that way, guys. Christian Moore moved up 10 spots in the rankings. I actually think that was me.
Yeah, it looks like it.
This was the first time I've actually updated my list after PG National. It took me a little bit more time to stew on it for a few weeks. And, so he's a guy, having watched him a little bit more, it was familiar, but it was, scouting video on PG or, wherever. Now that I've been able to watch him in game, been able to watch him in the showcase events, I have a better feel for him, and I really like Christian Moore. So he actually moved up to 18 on my list. So I think he's 24 on yours, but whatever, it's a couple of ranks.
Yeah, which gets him at he's in the top 20, number 20.
He is. He's number 20 on our list now.
We're jumping around a little bit. Ethan Wilson, Tyree Reed, Robbie Martin, they're all in there, but we're glazing over.
Yeah, I figure we'll let them read the list. I wanted to go through the guys that had
absolutely
some changes in the top 10, and then some players that maybe had double-digit movers, because we had some double-digit movers this week.
Quite a few.
Levi Usher, your boy, Levi Usher, our boy, because apparently we have the exact same rank. I love it when this happens.
Oh, yeah.
I know what the rank is. 26.
Yep.
Levi Usher is actually, does that mean he's 25? He's 25.
Yep. 25 on our rankings.
Because we have him 26. 15 spots Usher moved up. I think that was partially myself. And
it was me.
Did you move him up a bit too?
I moved him up 34 spots.
Too. Yeah, I had him in like a second round grade on him. As I started digging more, I was like, yeah, I'm going to move Usher up a little bit.
I had him at 60, and I moved him up to 30. No, I moved him up to 26. The more I dug in, the more I think he's poised. Man. He's poised for a breakout, and he's a true center fielder. I can't argue with that profile.
Yeah, no. There you go. Let's talk about the negative, though. Christian Little dropping 13 spots. Now, I'll say, at least from my perspective, I had Little pretty high. He's young for the class. He's immensely talented and extremely, fluid mechanics. There's some stuff with the arm motion. I think we talked about this last week that we don't like. Timing isn't as good as it looks. It's once you start to break it down, the stuff is good but not great. And he's physically mature. And I don't mean that in the sense of like a bad body like Kevin Maitan physically mature.
No,
he's incredibly bulked up and muscular. I mean, my man has serious pythons. He's got to register those guns. He's jacked for a pitcher. Quite frankly, he's jacked for a pitcher. But where does he go from here? If he's what is it he's going to do? It's going to have to be making his fastball more efficient or changing
that's what it is.
Profile of his pitches. Some of that is easier said than done. Depends on him, right? I mean, we can't just wave a magic wand with a good pitching coach and feel that it's going to work for everybody. He's incredibly talented, Christian Little. So I would not be shocked if he's a guy that can take a step forward like that, maybe even over the course of this draft process. But for now, what I saw, I'm going to pump the brakes on him a little bit. I don't think it's so much a negative on Little as much as it's sort of putting myself in check, recalibrating expectations a little bit.
Prep arms, you always have to be skeptical on him. Especially early. I mean, he's 16 years old. Command was an issue. The mechanics were, I think we called him a little wonky at times. He just gets out of sync. The fastball, I had heard so much about the fastball prior to PG National, and it's not that it was bad. I mean, hitting 94 on the gun at 16 years old is incredible. But I expected a little bit more. I expected a little more life on the pitch. He gets good spin rates on his fastball, but it can get a little flat, and that might be his mechanics. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just let's see how he develops. Let's find a reason to move him up the charts. That's kind of where I land too.
Yeah. And I mean, he's still 26 in our list, so. It's not like he's a guy. He was
still
just
a first-round grade.
He was overranked. I think I overranked him before, and now we've recalibrated expectations. Another guy that moved up in the rankings is Cody Schreier. I have him up at 20. I like the bat, man.
I do too, and more than just the bat, I like the potential for him to stay on the dirt.
Yeah,
and I had questions about his ability to stick it short or on the dirt at all. And I still do, but I think he could be an average shortstop.
I think he could be a good second baseman.
I do too. And I think he could play third base as well. He's got more than enough arm, but I love the bat. I really do like the bat.
Me too. Yeah. And so I have him pretty high. I'm probably higher on him than I would imagine most. I don't know how many folks have Cody Schreier in their top 20, but he's number 20 for me. I'm a big fan. Maybe there'll be another overrank like Christian Little. I'll have to check myself on.
See. Not if he performs like he did at PG National all year.
I think this is a guy up next that we both moved down, and we're very simpatico here because we moved him down, and we moved him down around 30 or after. That's Isaac Pacheco. down 15 spots in our rankings to 31. So outside of the top 30. Joe, I'll let you handle this one. I know I rambled on for about Christian Little for a while. So what are your thoughts and what's your reasoning behind moving Pacheco down in this list? Still a first rounder though.
Still a first rounder. So he's listed as a shortstop. He's ultimately not going to be a shortstop. He's huge. I mean, he's 6'4", 220 pounds. The only thing that really worries me about Pacheco is the hit tool. He's going to run into fine raw power, but the swing gets a little bit long. He has a hard time making consistent contact. So it's really fun to dream on the body. And I think it's really fun to think, this guy is this big and he moves that well. But I'm just not sure if Pacheco is going to hit enough yet to warrant a first round grade for me.
I felt like the initial reactions to seeing him in batting practice during the week of PG National was a little, he looks good in a uniform. That people were a little too excited. The bat looks good. But in game, I'll stand by this. I think the bat's kind of slow. I don't think he has an incredibly quick bat, and that's something that worries me. Bat speed is something that worries me. Especially for the kind of hitter that he is. I want a guy that's going to be able to, chop trees in a single swoop. And I'm not so sure about that with Pacheco. There is some power at the point of contact, though. It's just a matter of, can he catch up to 94 and, pull that, deposit that to his pull side? I'm just not so sure that he necessarily can. All right. Let's go with the big movers here, man. The guys that really moved up the list.
This is where we're going to get in trouble, Ralph.
Chase Burns moving up 22 spots in our rankings. Why?
It's another guy that looks good in a uniform. You know what I mean? 6'4", very lean and strong, 220 pounds. And the dude just came out throwing gas. You can't. So I know there's like the idiom, you can't teach velo, and you can teach it, but this dude, he's also 16, I think, 96 to 99, pounded the zone at PG National. Command with the secondary pitches, there's still a little bit to be desired there, but it's a good operation. Some good sweep on the slider, good curveball. The changeup is honestly, the changeup is probably his best secondary pitch, and he didn't even throw it that much. I mean, he was just fastball, slider. I moved him up pretty high on our rankings. Where did I put him? I have him a little higher than you at 36, and I think he's my 4th or 5th prep arm in this class. I just think if there's a guy that has like the prototypical profile of the type that gets a ton of helium leading up to draft day, it's the arsenal and the body of a Chase Burns.
Yeah, and I still have Petty ahead of him. I still have Irvin Carter ahead of him. And I have the next guy that we'll talk about in a moment ahead of him. But I want to say that, I agree. I think I moved up Burns as well. He was one of the most impressive pitchers at PG for me. That slider popping in at 88 at times.
Yeah.
Woo,
and
with
it's
98, 99 mile per hour fastball. And this guy will work with a curveball at 89, a changeup at 89 with that separation of like 10 miles per hour. It's perfect. And then it'll drop in an upper 70s curveball. For me, that was more of a get me over offering. It's really, the 3-pitch mix with the fastball, the changeup, and the slider. And it's good stuff. He's got high octane stuff already, and he's got sort of a maxed out body. Anything else?
If I were a betting man, I'd put my chips down on Chase Burns being the second pitcher from the prep ranks drafted in 2021. I get the feeling.
Our list soon. I think we might have underranked him.
We might have. Honestly, I mean, what's there not to like besides the command right now?
I put him after Irvin Carter, my boy McHappy Feet, little head knock McHappy Feet. But I love the athleticism, man. I can't. And the stuff is nasty. I put that video on when I go to sleep every night. Maddox Bruns, not Chase Burns. Maddox Bruns.
This is the biggest guy.
Did he move up in our rankings, Joe?
He moved up 120 spots.
119 to be exact. But yes, 120 spots in the rankings. That's what happens when you have a pretty deep list. And, he
was a pop.
40.
He popped.
He's actually at 37 in our ranks, but we each have him ranked 40.
Do we?
Yes.
Yeah, we're both at 40, which gets him to 37. It's funny how that works, but yeah, he's the 5th best prep pitcher on our board. And when you're a lefty with 6'2" frame and you've got the assortment of pitches and velo that he does, you can understand why Baseball America put him number 1. He's not quite there for us yet. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. The only thing with Bruns for me is, last fall he was 86 to 88, touching 89. And all of a sudden we're 8 months later, and now he's touching 97.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, let me see you do it over 3 innings. And then, the sky's the limit. But
yeah,
short sample size. It happens.
Man, he gets great extension too. And it's one of the things that when people were like, is he really 6'2"? Like, is that really his height? And it's like, yeah, his lower half is just like elastic. It's tremendous.
His release height is low. It is low in the fastball.
He really drops and drives. And I mean, he gets, all of his back leg push, and to the point that, he completely rotates his bottom half in his follow through,
But it's not violent.
No, it's not.
Pretty composed for 97.
You know what it is he's got great positive disconnection. If you watch his glove hand gets way out of the way, and it allows him to dip down and get nice tilt on those pitches. It's one of the things that I noticed on Bruns. He's really fun though. I love all the pitches in the arsenal, the fastball, those curveballs he was dropping in the low 80s. And it's a hard downer.
It's power.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost got 2 variations of it. One that's almost like a cutter, slider version that's like 86 or 87. It's pretty funky. He's a lot of fun. All right, let's go through a couple other movers, and then we'll wrap this up, and we'll talk about a couple of guys that we're big fans of. Let's have a Luke Leto conversation, because I think the Luke Leto conversation needs to be had. I'll jump in here first. When it comes to Leto, he's a guy that had a ton of pedigree. Those that were around Leto and have seen him play for the last several years, 2 years ago, this guy was undoubtedly one of the best players in the class, incredibly talented. The arm was strong from the mound. He stopped pitching. Since then, the arm has kind of deteriorated in the field. The athleticism has backed up a lot. Just in terms of his ability to play shortstop, I just don't think it's there anymore. I know Joe's echoed these sentiments on Twitter, so I'm not necessarily saying anything original. But the bat's still there. I still think that he's got some feel to hit. It's just a matter of him optimizing that swing a little bit more for power. The bat did look a little slow though. It's a smooth swing, which sometimes means it's a slow swing, which isn't great.
Yeah,
I'm trying to take it with. I don't want to be too harsh on this guy following the shutdown, but he's backed up, man. He's backed up. The guy that we saw at PG National, if you go and you watch our video that we uploaded of Leto, you'll know what I'm talking about. That infield was like Roger Dorn in Major League bad. Like it was bad. It was bad.
But and we've talked to Brian.
I hate to, crap what I can, but yeah.
No, I know. Yeah, we talked to Brian, and it sounds like Leto is taking an approach now that they want him all over the field. And in the outfield, he's getting time in the outfield at recent events, regional events, where we've gotten reports that he looks smoother. He's better underway when he's running, so he doesn't have to rely too much on that first step. So he's got that going for him. The biggest thing for me, and on the note of the hitch, the note of the swing speed, barrel velocity, he's got a hitch right now in his swing that he never had prior. I don't know what it is. It's a weird trigger in his loading mechanism. That if he irons that out, I think he can get his bat speed back. Mm-hmm. But the thing with me for Leto is I still think he has the capability to go in the top 50 picks in the draft. But we're going to have to grade him on a new set of parameters. What we're looking at now is probably a first base corner outfield type.
Yep.
With maybe the possibility of a third baseman. I don't think that's there with the arm personally. So if you put all that in a vacuum and you say, okay, this is what we have in a corner profile, where does he fit in the draft? And his bat, there's a lot more pressure on his bat now. I mean, the bat's going to have to show far more upside than it did to have him end up anywhere close to where he was, graded out 3 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's a second round grade for me right now.
Yeah. He's 45 or 44 on our list. And a lot of that, frankly, and this is not to pound on the kid, a lot of that's just out of respect and track record because I want to give him the benefit of the doubt with the bat.
True. We also had an addition to the list this week, a big one. Excuse me, I had a burp there. Ricky Tiedemann. Who was a prep arm, obviously we were familiar with from the draft just on, I guess, exactly a month ago.
Yeah.
That did not go. I forget where he was committed to, but
UCLA, I think.
It was UCLA. Now he's going to Long Beach City College, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Left-hander, sort of a big boy, played some first base as well.
I love Tiedemann, man.
Yeah, I like Tiedemann a lot. I really like the mechanics. He's relatively big, 6'3", 195. And he's still pretty young, still hasn't turned 18 yet.
Yeah, he's not even 18 yet.
Yeah, so he was young.
And he's touching 94.
Yeah, that's the thing is the velo has jumped up a little bit from where it was a year ago at some of these PG events where it was like 91, 92. Now he's up to 94. He's got that nice 3/4 arm slot. The breaking ball has started to take more shape. It's not as slurvy as it used to be. And it started to add a little bit of velocity as well. I like Tiedemann a lot. I think this was a good move by him.
I do too.
He's a guy that could end up in the first round.
Totally agree. Had him a second round grade for the 2020 draft, and I think money ended up being the issue. Couldn't agree more. If he's 95, 96, or even 94, 96 at Long Beach and the slider continues to show command, yeah, I mean, you're also talking about a kid that's 6'4", 200 pounds coming from the southpaw side. So there's a lot to like in Ricky Tiedemann.
He's 6'4" now?
Yeah, I think he's 6'4", 200. I can double check, but okay. He's a big boy.
I had 6'3", 195, so you got an inch and 5 pounds on me.
Well, all right. Well, we're cutting hairs. We quite literally might be splitting hairs on that.
How the hell did Jack Perkins move up 18 spots?
That's got to be you, because I've always been pretty high on Jack.
You have. You've been very high on Jack.
Yeah, see,
I only have him at 84. You have him at 22. Tell me on Jack Perkins. What am I missing?
I dropped him down a couple spots, but I really like I like the potential with him, man. You got a good sturdy frame. The mechanics are improving. They're not there yet, but the slider is a wipeout slider that has elite vertical and horizontal movement. It's got great depth. The fastball touches 95. He's recovering from Tommy John right now, so hopefully he's got that in his rearview mirror. I might be a little bit high on him, but I do believe in his first round talent. So more than anything, I'm probably gambling a little bit here on him breaking out in 2021. But yeah, he's one of my favorite right-handed arms for the class, and I think at worst, he's a power reliever at worst.
You asked me that question the other day, and you think he's a reliever now?
No, I think if you were to put a ratio on it, I'd say he's 40% starter, 60% reliever. The changeup isn't there yet, but it is a power changeup at like 87, 88 that he gets pretty good action on. He just can't command it yet. So we're going to get a good look at him. He might end up being the Friday night guy at Louisville.
Now, is he in Grandview this season?
Mm-hmm.
You know what it is? The Grandview League? Am I right about that?
Yeah, he's Grand Park.
It's the Grand Park League.
Grand Park Summer League. Yeah, he's got I talked to him today. He's got 10 innings under his belt, 11 strikeouts. Struggling a little bit with command as he's trying to, like you said earlier, get more separation and stay locked into his back hip a little bit longer, keep his heel toward the catcher. But it's obvious that he's very cognizant of the changes that need to take place in his mechanics. His elbow needs to get up, but he's working through it. I mean, he already blew out his UCL, so you better figure it out at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to figure it out. You don't want that inverted W. We were talking about that earlier.
No. Or as Trevor called it, the M.
Other big movers. Jackson Jobe is up 57 spots in our rankings. I have him 42. You got him 70. Split the difference. I just love the stuff, man. You know, just the raw stuff at this point. For me, it's one of the, you know, in terms of measurables, it's one of the better breaking balls in the class. Good fastball as well. I think this is a guy that's going to end up comp round pick back into the first round. I think he's going to keep on moving up.
You know, the only reason I have him at 70 is because he pitched an event right after PG National and it was 93, 94. And the curveball slider was still 28.50, which is still double plus. I mean, that's still like in the 90th percentile. But when you're a pop-up, this is the exact same conversation that we had with Maddox Bruns. I just want to see it. You know, give me a month of it, and then I'm going to be all over it. But for now, he's at the end of the second round for me.
All right, fair enough. I have him sort of middle of the second round right now, and have him moving up a little bit. But it's not the end of the world. Actually, I guess it would kind of be the beginning of the second round, right? Because comp round usually.
Yeah, it might even be comp round.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm talking out my butt again. All right. That's when you do like 12 things at once. How did Dalen Lyle move up 106 spots, Joe?
Dude, that's gonna have to be your conversation. You gotta love him.
I do.
Take it away. I actually like the bat more, by the way, personally.
Oh, with Lyle?
Yeah.
So do I.
I mean, we've got him listed as a pitcher here, but I love the bat.
We should definitely change that so he's listed as a hitter. I don't even think I wrote any words about him as a pitcher, to be honest with you. But you know, he's got a little bit more athleticism than I think he probably gets credit for. You know, he's above average runner, sort of fringe plus. In my opinion, field to hit, he's right up there at the top of the class. You know, just in terms of like pure hit tool, he's got that sort of skill set, you know.
Is he going to be the Robert Hassel 2021?
I don't know if he's a Robert Hassel 2021. I don't know. I think there's a little more juice in the bat, actually. But I'm not sure if he's as good of an all-around player as Hassel. Do you think he is?
No.
Fielder as Hassel?
No, he doesn't have the arm that Hassel has, and he doesn't move as well as Hassel has.
Yeah, his arm's pretty below average. I think his max like throws from the outfield were like 85. So,
yeah.
It's kind of a below average arm. I kind of look at him more as like a long-term corner outfielder. Maybe he plays a little right, but he's more like a bat first left fielder that isn't terrible in the field, you know, in terms of left, but the arm kind of plays there because he's not going to play in center, you know, with his speed. He probably will for a short period of time. But in the interim, I don't think so.
Makes sense. He's the Seth Smith starter kit.
I guess he kind of is.
He's way more of an athlete than Seth Smith ever was. But
I don't think
it's a similar skill set, but a much higher ceiling.
I think it's one of those things where he ends up in left field, not because he's like a absolute hack and right, just because there's probably going to be somebody in whatever organization he's eventually in once he's a major leaguer. You know, that's a better right fielder than he is, but he's just got feel for the barrel, man. I mean, he just barrels up consistently. And that's probably the reason that he's a Louisville commit and the number one player in the state of Kentucky. All right. Anybody else on this list you want to sort of go through? We have somebody like Drake Vernado, who dropped 15 spots. Just didn't think the showing was all that good. Your local guy, Malika Knight. Did I say that right? Malachi Knight.
Yeah, he's up to 61. A lot of these guys, though.
Brock Riggio dropped, though.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these guys, we say they dropped, but like dropping 10 or 12 or 15 spots, so many guys popped up. You know, they were just kind of a product of people moving up. But the two arms that we should probably bring up, Gage Jump and Max DeBeck. Gage Jump breaks our top 70.
Gauge jump does break our top 70. You still have him back at I think 95.
Yep.
We have him about 47. I do really like jump a lot. I was lucky enough to take a look at some of his Rapsodo data. He's got a really interesting slider that has pretty low spin efficiency. It's about 11%, but it has some gyro spin on it, obviously, because of that low spin efficiency. It almost has some cutter elements to it. You know, I know I showed.
It's a gyro cutter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really what it is.
Well, and then he had a cutter, you know, that was a little bit harder with a little bit more spin efficiency. But that fastball, man.
But the cutter was dude, it's a weird profile. Like, there's no arguing Gauge Jump's fastball is like cream. Yes. It's awesome. But the slider is a gyro cutter slider that doesn't do one thing or the other. And the cutter almost has very little horizontal movement, but it's got like 8 inches of vertical tilt. It's almost like a power fading, like a power change almost.
Yeah.
It's a weird profile. I love the fastball though. 5'10", he's 5'10", throws 92, pounds the top of the zone with perfect spin efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to hit.
I don't mind his slider so much. I think that slider can play. You know, I'm not so sure about the cutter, but I don't know. I'd have to see how the movement profiles all look, you know, coming out of his release point and, you know, eventually sort of moving out. That'd be an easier way to sort of understand.
I think the pitches play better than the TrackMan and Rapsodo would suggest. We'll put it that way.
Probably. I don't think it was that bad. You know, I think it was just a matter of preference. The other guy that I know I'm going to kick over to you, Max DeBeck.
Yeah, DeBeck. I really like Max DeBeck, and I know that's a little bit of like a local boy homery thing, but I moved him up. Where did we have DeBeck? Let's see. You had him at 138. You've got him up to 75. I had him at 106. Got him up to 69. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect him to come out throwing 96, 97 because I had seen him a couple times out here in Seattle. The mechanics were probably the most impressive part at 6'7". He really does a pretty good job of staying within his operation, and it's a good sound operation that, you know, he doesn't get out of his own way. The only thing that I think would really take this guy to the next level is developing a slider and a curveball that are different from each other, because he's got this 2 different grips and he throws 2 different pitches, but man, they're basically the same pitch. So I'm just excited to see more of him. I mean, when you're talking about a kid at 17 that's 6'7" throwing, you know, triple digits, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. All right, any guys that you still feel we need to cover? I mean, we've gone the full 40 minutes that we promised we were going to. We just dug into the ranking changes, I think, a little bit more than we had expected. Any other names that you want to sort of highlight here in the last couple of minutes before we wrap up? Because I have one guy that I do want to mention.
Well, bring it on, man. Let's hear who you got.
Not the right-wing radical James Woods.
Oh, jeez.
But the baseball playing James Wood. Thank God it's Wood and not Woods, huh?
Yeah.
Woods.
It's a tough Google search. No, it's Wood. It's James Wood.
I thought it was James Wood.
Yeah.
I love the Batman. I thought he was one of the most impressive hitters. He's a big boy, but
he's a big boy.
He makes great contact, and I think there's field to hit and certainly some projectable power as well. Where is he committed to? Is it Mississippi State? I think. I know he's a Maryland guy. You know, lefty bat on top of it. He's kind of maxed out. You know, he's probably first base only long term. No.
I could see him in a corner.
Yeah, you think so? Maybe like
I think so. He moves pretty well. He doesn't have a great arm, but I think he's clocked a pretty good
run a little bit. He's 6'6", 30. But dude, he can match. He's very strong.
Yeah, he's a Mississippi State program. Yeah, I like James Wood. I'm not in love with the swing just because it's so rotational. I think that kind of gets showed off a little bit when you're facing, or showed showed up, I should say, a little bit when you're facing elite talent. So I want to see how he does against better pitching. But physically, yeah, I mean, he's kind of in that Josh Baez camp where if he hits the ball, it's torched.
I think the thing that was unique about him, for me at least, was he had an ability to make hard contact, but have a really compact swing for a 6'6" teenager.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he obviously swings a big bat, and he does a good job of not sort of overextending for 6'6", you know, so he covers more of the inner half of the plate than I think a lot of big guys do, which I think in turn allows him to, you know, jump on stuff a little bit early, especially if somebody bangs him on the inside. I don't know. There were just elements of his swing that I thought were very unique for a guy that was that big. But I'm gonna chance to watch him next summer at or spring at IMG, hopefully. So
his swing reminds me of just a much bigger, stronger Braylon Bishop.
Really?
Personally, I mean, they both do a good job of staying inside. But
I thought his lower half was way stronger than
Bishop.
Bishop.
It's way stronger.
Bishop
I'm just saying.
Pivots onto his feet like this.
I thought James Woods did the same thing. I thought he ended up with his hips in the dugout and he cleared out super early and let the barrel do the talking. But
he will clear out. But I think his feet are definitely more sturdy than Bishop's are.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. You certainly had a better look on him than I did, but he's rising. He's moving up. He moved up by rankings as well.
I'm going to go back and look at his swing and probably agree with everything you just said. So it's always how it works, isn't it? All right. Well, there you go. I guess that's our last guy is James Wood. We'll wrap up the podcast with the Maryland prep talent. He was a Mississippi State commit. I just took a look. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure that you check in on prospectslive.com. Read our full top 100 list. It's the first top 100 release, at least on our site, for the 2021 class. We have full write-ups in there, not just rankings. We're explaining who these players are and trying to get you familiar with them over these next 11 months as we bring you along to draft day.
Kind of stock watch.
Yeah, stock watch. The stock watch is always there. The arrows, really great details that Joe and Chip on the back end, Chip Bourne, one of our owners, has been helping us out with. So big shouts to Chip and to you as well, Joe. And for another week, we bid you adieu. We'll be back. Thanks for watching.